to No Limits, episode 147. Oh, wait, no, I have to wait until I have to redo the intro. Sam. Sam's here. I'm here. I wasn't here last week. Bree was here last week. Sam,
She
you know
was.
what rhymes with 147?
Tell me.
25. Hello, everyone. My name is Taylor, and I'm joined by my co-host, Sam. You're listening to No Limits, a PlayStation podcast, episode 147. Remember, you can find the video version of this pod over on youtube.com/SaveTheGameMedia every Tuesday. And while you're over there, make sure to subscribe to the channel. If you would rather listen to audio, we are on all your favorite podcast services, and we would love it if you could leave us a review. It helps us grow, and we would love any feedback. If you want to support us and get early access to all Save the Game Media content, head over to patreon.com/SaveTheGameMedia and choose a tier that's right for you. Just like our current patrons did: Alpaca Tom, Fabulous Brianna, Brianna's mom, Nikolai Knight, Brendan Myers, Marcus O'Neill, Lillian, David Hotterite, Dave Harp, the Xbox Expansion Pass, Lena Barr, Sil Cannett, Rick Davis, Todd Oxtra, Brandon, Sam Hall. Also, please interact with us in the Discord. Links are all in the show notes. How are you doing, Sam? I am. Sam, I am. Green Eggs and Ham.
You took that away from me, and I'm not happy.
Yep.
I'm good. Busy, but you know, what's new? Yeah, not really much to report on my side of things. So I'm going to be boring and leave it there. What about you? How are you, good sir?
Not good. Nope.
Oh.
Past couple weeks have not been good.
Uh-huh.
Stuff at work's been very stressful, and it's unfortunately spilling over. Feels like it's spilling over into my personal life. So, yep.
Sorry to hear that.
Thanks. Yeah, I haven't really played games at all. Except for a little bit of Flight Sim.
Of course.
Flying out of Innsbruck, Austria. Very beautiful airport, by the way. Perhaps the most beautiful airport in Europe. It's cut in between the Alps, so.
Okay.
Anyway, that's where I've been. Yeah, not ideal. Nope. I think it's going to be okay.
Fingers crossed. Staying positive.
Trying. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. What about you, Sam? What have you been playing?
I can't talk about one thing, but
why?
Because I don't want to.
It's not the contract you signed with me.
Yeah.
We have signed an FDA full disclosure agreement. You have to talk about everything.
Oof, sorry about that. I guess I'm gonna have to rescind on that agreement.
Any question I ask?
Yeah. You might not like the answers. But pretty much the only thing I'm playing in terms of free time is obviously Death Stranding 2. Pretty obviously.
Of course, Death Stranding. Hey, Linguini.
Forget about it.
Oh God, Italians don't kill me. New Yorkers don't kill me. Calm down. Okay.
Yeah, which I waxed lyrical on last week, so I will leave it there. But it's still getting better as I go through it. I think I'm like 90 something hours in, Basically doing everything I can as I go along. And it's very hard for me to gauge exactly how close I am to finishing for people that know, because I don't know how many chapters there are. But I think I actually can check right now.
Don't check.
I believe, yeah, I've barely scratched into chapter 10.
Oh, there's chapters. Was the first game of chapters?
Yeah.
All right. And how many chapters are there in DS2 allegedly?
That's what I said. I don't know. I haven't looked it up.
I'll look it up.
I don't want to know.
How many? I'm not going to look it up.
But I said to Brie, I'm probably 2/3 through the game. How much of that is the story? I don't know. But I think the first game had like 16 or 17 chapters, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's relatively similar. Yeah, fantastic. Better than the first in every way, which is what you look for from a sequel. But I think Kojima's done it again. Proving he
Okay.
still has it.
He still has it. And he's
Yep.
60. He's 60, right? Ish.
Yeah, I think he's over 60 now. I think he's like 61, 62.
I googled how old is Kojima, mommy, and it didn't give me a good answer.
Yeah, the mommy might be worth taking off.
61. Okay, he turned
Yeah.
62 in a month, ish.
There you go. And it like from what he's saying, it sounds like we're getting towards the end of his game creation career. Whether that actually proves true, I don't know. But he did say that Fizzon is going to be like the culmination of his career. So that would imply that that might be seen as his last project, which is sad, but also pretty exciting considering what he's clearly capable of doing with Death Stranding 2. I can't imagine what a proper action espionage game from him is going to look like on PS6.
Well, that's his last game, maybe. You said Fizzon.
Well, I mean, yeah. Fizzon
is not the last. Fizzon is the espionage game.
That's what I'm saying.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So he's presumably, as far as we know, unless it's been cancelled, which there's scuttlebutt of, but nothing confirmed or even really concrete about it. Like he's presumably still doing OD with Jordan Peele and that lot over at Xbox.
I thought you were about to say Jordan Peterson, and I'm like, what? Oh, I did not know he was working on video games. Okay.
Which you assume at this stage, considering Microsoft's strategy, that will come to PlayStation, which I think that was probably tailored at one point to be a Xbox exclusive. Time will tell, though, because I think that's the one way that it's going to be heavily reliant on cloud technology. So exactly how interwoven it is with Microsoft stuff, that might make it harder to be multi-platform, but I don't know. But yeah, Fizzon is a ways off. So late 60s he'll be probably by the time Fizzon comes out. And that might be being optimistic. I don't know. So yeah. But hey, if Death Stranding 2 is any indication, it seems like he's entering the swan song where he's just knocking it out of the park. So yeah, having a great time. I will obviously be going for the platinum. It's bigger and better again in every way, so that's fantastic. I'm loving it.
Good for you.
Thanks.
I'm going to play the first game eventually. I think the switch to new game sound. Oh wait. Sorry. Let me back up. My mind's going too many different places. The new game, like the new car smell, the new console smells kind of wearing off a little bit. I really could have waited on this console. I think this is a sidebar to what you were saying. I'm sorry. Um, but with regards to games, it's part of the reason I haven't played that much. But I forgot. Kevin said he didn't have a Pro controller for Switch too, right?
Wouldn't have a clue.
I barely use my Pro controller. I don't think I care to hold on to it. Kev, if you're listening to this, for how much does this thing retail for? Switch 2 Pro controller. $85 before tax. Kevin, I will ship my Pro controller to you. $65 shipped. Okay? I switched to barely used Pro controller.
How generous.
Yeah. So I will
Yeah,
also DM you.
see, you say that, Taylor, and in like what 2 and a bit weeks, Donkey Kong's coming out.
Yeah, but I don't mind going around to my Switch 2 and just pressing the power button to turn on the console. That's the only reason I feel.
Well, no, I don't mean specifically for the Pro controller. I'm just talking about you having that new console smell wearing off.
Yeah, Donkey Kong is cool, but I'm there for Metroid is the golden goose, Sam. That's my in.
But Donkey Kong is from the Odyssey team.
It is from the Odyssey. It looks very good, doesn't it? In it, but
I mean, yeah, doesn't do much for me.
Right, it's true. Well, Sam,
Yeah.
bring up a good point. Kevin, I hold the offer. Having to reconsider my fiduciary here guiding me along the way. Sam, I forgot to mention I haven't been playing many games, but I have started and completed Daredevil Born Again Season 1.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Yep. Michael Gandolfini, Shireen, his dad. That's my takeaway from the first season.
Yeah.
No, that's a little cruel. It is the first and last episodes are good, and the middle is mid. This is my take.
Okay.
I feel a little imposter seeing all like the rave reviews online about how great Born Again Season 1 is, when it seemed to me like the bulk of the middle of the season was very elementary superhero scenario stuff. Stopping a bad guy on this episode, stopping a bad guy on that episode without much depth to them being there. The star of the show, right, is Kingpin, I think, or Kingpin's Vincent D'Onofrio's performance once again.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the growing pain for people who have been longtime fans is just that this is serving as a reintroduction for people that don't want to have to do all of that homework on the Netflix show.
I see. Yeah.
So they're sort of having to do sort of week to week, having him going up against different types of threats to display his versatility, and then have some courtroom stuff and have Kingpin lingering in the background. Which is, I agree, it's like not really hitting the ground running necessarily, because it's having to reestablish things so that there's no presumed contextual information from the audience's perspective. But also, I think a lot of the, well, I'm not going to say a lot of the positivity, but some of the positivity is also just based on the fact that this is potentially an indictment on the other stuff compared to other Marvel Disney Plus shows. Born Again is one of the considerably better ones, primarily just in terms of like consistency and vision and scope. Like it is far more consistent than pretty much every other show outside of the first few. So I think that gave it quite a lot of brownie points for people. Yeah, no, you're caught up now. So you're all ready for season 2 when that comes out early next year.
That's soon, huh?
Yep.
Okay, well, I'm glad to say Kingpin has changed and he's turned into an an old version of Aang.
That must be a reference that is flushing right over my head.
That would be an amazing SNL skit. Vincent D'Onofrio reprises his role as Kingpin, but he's Aang. Come on.
I have no idea where this is coming from.
Would you need the rights permissions from Disney and Nick to do that? Or could you just do that as a fair use spoof?
I am not a lawyer, so
Sam.
I have no idea.
The inner machinations in my mind are an enigma.
That's one way of putting it.
Anyway, Sam, enough for this stupid preamble. Sorry, man. Sorry.
Who are you saying sorry to?
Sorry, as my Canadian listeners might think.
That's right.
They think saying Ori instead of Ari.
Yep.
Yeah. Sorry in the blind forest.
Jesus.
Wait, isn't Moonin from Canada?
I have no idea.
No, they're Austrian. I was pretty close.
Not really.
Okay. Anyway, Sam, we have a good bit about a bit of news this week. That's how you speak English.
So that is how you speak English. Yeah, you did it. Well done.
Yeah, and
good learning.
I guess starting off, Helldivers 2 is launching off on Xbox Series X and S on August 26th. This marks the first PlayStation-owned IP that Sony is publishing on Xbox itself. This has ignited discourse online about what this means for PlayStation going forward and what their publishing strategy might be. Right, are single-player games next? Interestingly, this is the same release date as Gears Reloaded on PS5, so some have debated the potential of counter-programming.
Yeah.
I forgot about Gears Reloaded. I need to play that game at some point. Never played Gears, Sam, because we're going to play it for the first time.
I'm getting a physical copy. How weird is that going to be?
And Xbox isn't. You heard about that, right? That Xbox will not a physical copy of Gears Reloaded. It'll be code on the box.
I mean, yeah, but they're doing that for all of their games now on Xbox. So, but PlayStation gets the disc, baby. Lovely stuff. Yeah, it's pretty surprising. I feel like I certainly have been on the record saying that it wouldn't happen. Like, it doesn't make much sense.
Yep. You missed. Wrong. Incorrect. Bam.
Yeah, I mean, clearly I am.
Whoa.
But I think it made sense from the logical perspective I was positioning myself in, but clearly something internally has changed at Sony. Now, whether that is, as I said, was saying in the Discord when this news broke, whether that's just the overall, regardless of whether they own the IP or not, if they have a live service game that they are fiscally responsible for, they were just going to put it everywhere, which may well be the case. We know all of Bungie's games now and into the future will be multi-platform, including Xbox. So maybe that does just extend out to everything. So maybe like Fair Games, if that ever comes out, is also on Xbox.
Not happening.
Maybe
not coming out.
It could also just mean, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, it could mean that PlayStation view Xbox as so inconsequential as a competitor now that they might as well milk the audience. And as the hardware sort of begins to pivot and shift over the next few years into next generation, whatever that looks like, maybe PlayStation views it as a marketing opportunity of sorts to show people their games, let them play them, and then when it does come time to upgrade to next gen, at whatever point that comes, maybe that is a ploy. But the reality is we don't know exactly what drove this decision. It's great that, Helldivers 2, we're on record saying it's a fantastic game. So it's great that it's receiving more players. That probably guarantees that it's going to continue to do pretty well moving forwards, because a game like Helldivers 2 would, I hope at least, thrive on Xbox, particularly when Gears and Halo are sort of absent on the platform. But yeah, I surprised, and I will take the proverbial L. What do you have any thoughts? Like, do you think this extends beyond the multiplayer live service stuff? Do you think that, for whatever reason, whatever the ideology behind the strategy is, do they think, well, maybe we might as well get more money on a Spider-Man or a God of War? Do the single player games go across?
I mean, what's the harm in putting God of War 2018 on there? The game's selling curve is already completed, effectively, right?
Sure.
Yeah, I think. Well, Helldivers 2 is also a multiplayer game, a cross-platform one at that, right? And I assume they confirmed that Xbox players will be able to do cross-platform play with PC and
Yes.
PlayStation.
Yeah.
So I think Helldivers 2 is the exception, not the new rule.
Yeah.
Because it is a multiplayer live service game that the goal of the live service game is to reach as many players as possible, right? That's how these games stay afloat for 4+ years after they come out. I think if you have a live service game that's stable and playable and turned a profit that's still going for 4 years after, it has been a massively successful live service title, right? And this only tries to further that goal. So I don't see this as part of a wider trend for PlayStation. Like I said, I see it as more of a one-off. Although I'll be happy to eat my words if they do it. I do not mind Xbox players getting Spider-Man or Wolverine. I really don't. But I think I've been so PC pilled, as the kids say, that I'm just, if you have access to a game you want to play, good for you. And that's kind of, I think, where I'm at on it at this point. We could talk about corporate strategy all day, but obviously Xbox is going the other direction, right? Putting their new stuff everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're aligned there. Like, conceptually, I don't have a problem with anybody having access to any game. I think, PlayStation, even recently in the financial reports and the investor call or whatever that was, that Herman and Shino did a month or two ago, they reaffirmed that they aren't pivoting, that there isn't some big shift in their strategy. When they were explicitly talking about what Xbox were doing multi-platform push, they said, it's good to have competition, but we don't see a need to shift our strategy. And I think, at least as things stand today, which I don't see changing in the short to midterm, the primary thing for Sony, and the difference between it and Xbox, is that Sony is very reliant on hardware, selling it as a buy-in that then gets people into the ecosystem and spending money, whereas Xbox is now driven primarily by software, not hardware. And Sony need to protect the value of their hardware, at least to an extent. And, like it or not, one of the driving factors that can incentivize people purchasing hardware is exclusive content. So I would say that to preserve the value of hardware, which you've seen the diminishing of with Xbox's strategy for the time being, unless things drastically shift, they will keep the single player, at least at the very least, the biggest single player stuff, like the real tentpole things they will keep. I could maybe see hypothetically like Fire Sprite, if they are doing like an Until Dawn 2, I could maybe see something of that scale crossing over. But I think in terms of God of War, Spider-Man, Ghost, Last of Us, Horizon, like I don't see any of those going. Because I think that people can argue that it's not, but I do think that that is still, as things stand, too much of a draw for prospective customers. Like, oh, that Spider-Man game looks really cool. Where can I play it? Oh, I can only play it on PlayStation. Then I should probably get a PlayStation. If you're discerning consumer and you want to wait a year or two, then you can obviously get it on PC. But that is entirely subjective on what kind of consumer you are. So as the dominant force in the hardware space, I think Sony will preserve that as long as they can. So we'll see, though. It is interesting that they're releasing it the same day as Gears. I don't think that there's like an espionage thing going on here, but I could maybe see the logic in a boardroom somewhere where execs at some level at Sony say, wouldn't it be really funny or really good for us as a talking point if one of the tentpole franchises from Xbox releases and it's beaten in player charts in sales by one of our games? It's the same thing that Xbox boasts about with Xbox games topping the PlayStation Store. I think that is a feather in the cap. Now, obviously, that is more so than anything else ammunition in this console war that would have been historically very prevalent between the two entities, but now isn't. So I don't know that they really need to do that kind of thing. But I can't see that releasing the exact same day as Gears Reloaded isn't, for whatever reason, an intentional choice. So we'll see how it turns out. I do expect Helldivers to do incredibly well on Xbox, particularly because it's obviously not in Game Pass. You have to buy it for $40. So I think it's gonna top the charts. And people are then debating, well, if that does super well, is the money gonna speak louder than anything else? And then Sony gets interested in what else could top the charts, which is, but all of that is, it's way too early to tell. So we'll see how things play out over the next month or two.
Yeah, Concord, that'll do it.
Bring it over. Get those player numbers up.
Oh God, when did Concord
Xbox
come
love
out?
mediocre
Was
shooters.
that last summer?
So.
Can't be. Oh God, it was last summer, wasn't it? It came out.
Yeah, 2024. Yeah.
Oh my God, it's already been a year.
Yeah, I think it came out in August, if I want to believe early August. Sounds right.
I'm so sorry.
I know. Sad times. Still hurts.
Yeah.
Talking about PlayStation centric, adjacent, whatever you want to call it, things maybe topping charts or having things to boast about. Not that either of us will care in the slightest about this, but it is notable. Destiny Rising, which is the mobile spin-off of Destiny, which I think is primarily like a gacha game. It's reached 5 million pre-registrations, which they announced on socials. The game developed by NetEase. 5 million players have signed up ahead of its launch on the 28th of August this year. And editorially, it's pointing out that the hands-on impressions that I think were a few months ago at this point were actually pretty positive. Obviously, monetization, I think, wasn't active in those hands-on previews. So that's going to be the sticking point more so than anything. But if the level of interest with these pre-registrations and the positive impressions, if those coalesce and they don't get too greedy, it could be a big win for Sony in the mobile space, which is important because they have obviously been floundering there for quite a while. They closed their only mobile studio last year. So yeah, you love gacha games, you love mobile gaming, and you love Destiny, Taylor. So this is right up your alley.
Honestly, the person in our community who has the highest chance of this doing well with is Kyle. All right.
Statistically speaking, yeah.
Yeah, and that's not saying much because Kyle doesn't care about Destiny.
No. I will say, for what it's worth, like the few snippets of like gameplay and trailers I've seen of Destiny Rising does look surprisingly like high fidelity, high quality for a mobile game. But I still couldn't care less.
Yeah, Sam, it'll be a sad day when, well, take that back. There will always be, however small, a market of what will be the olds who only play traditional games and not mobile games, which will be a market to be served.
Yeah.
I think people as young as me and you, and people as old as maybe young Gen Xers, for the next, let's say for people as young as me and you, for the next 50 years, half a century, I think there'll be a big enough market for console games, standalone experiences that are not indie games, to still exist and make a lot of money. You know? So the Robloxes, the Destiny, Risings of the world, they won't take away the games you already have and the games that have yet to be made. All right. So I want to stop the mobile game dooming. All right. If it does take over, you'll have no more options after you die. That's my take. All right.
Damn.
I just wanted to get on my soapbox a little bit and stop fear mongering over mobile games taking over. Oh God, top no. Sorry, taking over your life, or not your life, but your hobby that you love so much, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's
Agreed.
just me.
No, agreed. I think mobile gaming will inevitably become potentially even the prominent or dominant form of gaming, if trends are to be trusted based on what we're seeing. But I don't think that will ever negate, certainly not PC gaming. But I think even console gaming will continue to persist, even if it becomes a niche sector. I think I think it'll always exist because it's an avenue or an experience that PC gaming or mobile gaming can't quite replicate. You can argue, you can sort of modify your PC gaming experience where essentially you feel like you're playing a console, but we're certainly not there yet. And Xbox is the one pushing most in that sort of PC-ification of Xbox, but time will tell how successful that is. So I'm with you. Stop the fear mongering. I'm on the soapbox. It's a little cramped up here, but
yeah, it's all right.
We're cozy together.
Yeah, we can share the soap, Sam, in the same shower.
Just don't drop it.
Is that politically incorrect to say nowadays?
I don't know. Like I think, yeah. I mean, I guess I don't think so. Like it depends contextually, right? Like I think you can make a joke about that sort of thing.
I was just talking about it because soap is slippery.
Sure.
Yeah. I've spent many hours in my shower trying to not have my soap slip out of my hands.
Hmm.
Just me tumbling and turning inside of my shower.
Yeah,
Where is it?
like
I can't
Sonic
get
the
it.
Hedgehog in there, just
Yeah.
spinning in a
Yeah.
in a
Soapy
ball.
water. Okay. This is not
Mm.
OnlyFans, is it? Moving on. Uh, everyone's favorite Sam, Neil Druckmann, right?
Hmm.
You know this there's like this subset of people who like cinephiles who are uh think that anything a filmmaker makes must automatically be peak of the genre, peak of whatever, and it must be excellent, and it's just they are the best no matter what they do. This complete idolization.
Sure.
I feel like Ari Aster and Christopher Nolan are two figures in the movie industry that especially young men our age or a bit older hyper fixate on, right? I think Neil Druckmann is the other side of that coin for gaming.
Okay.
That's my take. Anyway, Neil Druckmann and Haley Gross have departed from The Last of Us on HBO. And they're returning to focus on projects at Naughty Dog. So Naughty Dog posted the official announcement on their socials. Quote from Neil, I've made the difficult decision to step away from my creative involvement in The Last of Us at HBO. With work completed on season 2, and before any meaningful work starts on season 3. It's going to be a season 3. Oh my God, it's going to be season 3. Okay. As someone who hasn't watched season 2, I'm like, okay, fine. Now is the right time for me to transition my complete focus to Naughty Dog and its future projects, including writing and directing our exciting next game, Intergalactic The Heretic Project, along with my responsibilities as studio head and head of creative. Co-creating the show has been a career highlight. It's been an honor to work alongside Craig Mazin to executive produce, direct, and write on the last 2 seasons. I'm deeply thankful for the thoughtful approach and dedication on the talented cast and crew took to adapting The Last of Us Part 1 and the continued adaptation of The Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah.
So Neil's leaving the project. I've heard some conjecture that it might be due to creative differences between him and Craig and how they want to write the show. I've heard other people saying it really is just a bandwidth issue, and you can take it at face value that the show is in quote unquote good hands. Or I guess I say quote unquote. Okay, Sam, when I've used the words quote unquote, I've used it as a saying to identify how other people might consider something to be categorized rather than literally quoting someone in speech. I think I've been using it incorrectly, and the latter is how it's actually used.
Right.
So I'm going to stop saying quote unquote, and let me rephrase that, Sam, and say, I don't know what I was trying to go with what I was getting around when I mentioned the quote unquote in the first place. But the point is, if there's behind the scene rumors that Neil and Craig are not at odds with each other when it comes to the creative writing direction of the show,
Hmm.
or is it literally just a bandwidth issue with Neil, or some of both? I don't know. I thought what Craig did on Chernobyl was great, and thought season 1 was pretty good, but I don't want to see season 2. So I don't know. I think, frankly, it's probably a bit of column A, column B, and more on the bandwidth side of things than him genuinely not getting along with Craig. But curious to see your thoughts, Sam.
Why do you not want to see season 2?
I just, I, I,
You can speak freely here.
I don't know, Sam. I've heard not great things, and I'm not that fond of the story of The Last of Us season 2 as a grand project. So I don't, I don't know what seeing it on HBO will really be doing for me.
Interesting.
Because they're not changing the fundamental narrative of the story, right? So
Okay.
I don't know.
Fair
I
enough.
don't usually like to watch TV adaptations of works of art that I'm not super hot on.
Fair enough.
assuming I've seen that work of art prior to the TV show.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, again, we don't know specifics, and I doubt we will. But I would agree with you that it probably is a bit of both. I'm certainly not of the opinion that Craig and Neil have all of a sudden like completely fallen out. I don't see that. Though there is no denying, as you sort of indicated, that there has been a fair amount of contradictory, conflicting opinions on season 2 and what they did with it. Some choices were made, some structuring things were done. Obviously, they have only told half of the second game, which I think presents its own problem, that you sort of have to wait for season 3 to get the other parts of the story. And if you've played the game, you kind of know what that other part of the story is.
Oh, is it season 3 going to be starting off at the place in Last of Us 2 when you think it's the curtains closing, and then it says, "We're not done yet"? It says, you know what I'm talking about?
That was the end of season 2.
Yep. Yep. Yeah.
So,
Yep.
like, obviously, this isn't a massive spoiler at this point. Season 3 is like the Abby focused season. So there's a lot of good stuff in there, in my opinion, as someone who really liked the second game. And Abby as a character. Yara and Lev, that's going to be awesome, hopefully, as long as it's executed well. Some good set pieces that Abby has in the game will be cool to see in live action. But yeah, I'm not super hot on season 2. Quite a bit, not worse, but like just inferior to season 1. I still liked season 2, but as someone who will defend the game and the way that it tells its story and how and when it tells parts of the story, the restructuring has kind of completely destroyed the overarching message and themes of Last of Us Part 2, in my opinion.
This is not the first time I've heard this sentiment. This is why I'm hesitant on watching the show, to be honest.
Yeah. You know, again, without spoilers, it's sort of like in the game, you are fed motive and backstory and justification throughout the game. So you have a bit more of a natural processing as you play, and your emotions as a spectator and a player are more aligned with the characters. Whereas season 2 kind of like front loads a lot of those reveals, if you want to call it that, from the game. So the viewer watching the show has pretty much all of the contextual information they need about Abby and about relationships and dynamics. And I feel like that kind of has taken the wind out of the sails of a lot of character growth and how you become connected to these characters, or supposed to, based on the game. So I feel like clearly season 2 wasn't received as well on the whole, certainly not with viewers. Critics, I think, still were pretty solid on it. But viewership, I think, was down on the whole as well. So there could be something behind the scenes where either Craig has fallen out with him or HBO has maybe intervened somehow. But they don't want to get rid of Craig because Craig has done Chernobyl. Is too hot of a name to kick off of a show, I think. But I would lean with you, as you were saying, that it's probably primarily due to Neil, Naughty Dog, and by extension Sony and PlayStation probably at this stage being like, yeah, if we can expedite in the best possible sense Intergalactic as much as possible, that would be great. Like all hands on deck, please. And Neil himself has said about being spread quite thin the past couple of years. So I feel like that's probably the driving force. Like apparently no meaningful work has started on season 3. So if he was to be involved, that would consume yet more of his time quite deep into the future with the writing process. And executive producing and things like that. So that would be that much longer that we'd have to wait because Neil is directing Intergalactic. So he's like steering the ship, and if he's away from the studio for so long, then it's going to take that much longer to get the game out. He says he's still writing, which is I don't know how to receive that, because
He's still writing Intergalactic.
that's what he said. It's transition my complete focus to Naughty Dog and its future projects, including writing and directing our exciting next game, Intergalactic.
If you want to reach for the stars here in optimism, it could be for DLC.
Well, that, which could be true, or and I'm not going to proclaim to be super well versed on dev cycles, but writing and scripting for voiceover doesn't have to be done in the front half of development, or amending scripts or doing pickups and things like that. That can still happen. Right. Writing could also be like data entries and lore and journals and things like that, which there's plenty of in Naughty Dog games. If it's like fundamentally core writing of the actual main script for the game, that's a bit disconcerting. I'm sure it'll be worth the wait whenever it comes, but that might mean that Intergalactic is even further off than even we or people like Schreier were projecting.
2029.
Nah, no way. I think realistically, like as much as it hurts to say it, it's probably late 2027, I think. I was always of the opinion it's like, well, they wouldn't show it off this early. It's like 2026 at latest, but Schreier said it's 2027, and I think giving the leeway of end of that year is probably smart, which is crazy because that's 7 years since Last of Us Part 2 at that point. But I think this is the right move. Like whichever way you spin it, I think having Neil back where he, and no offense to HBO and the show, having Neil where he belongs in terms of game dev and prioritizing and focusing his time on that is the right call. Because I would hate, for whatever reason, Intergalactic to have lost months or years of Neil's attention, come out and be underwhelming in whatever capacity, and have those dots be connected as a reason for it being Naughty Dog's first flop, especially as a new IP. Like I want this thing to succeed, because if Naughty Dog can succeed with a new IP and be like cutting edge, then I think that's a boon for the industry. So yeah, we'll see, man. Also see what it means for the show. Like, is Craig going to be the sole writer? Is he bringing in a new team? I think somebody at Naughty Dog apparently is still going to be like consulting with Craig and like overseeing it. But yeah, time will tell. I mean, they're talking about season 4, Taylor. So God knows what they're going to do.
What?
Yeah, both Neil and Craig have said, before season 3 was greenlit, they're like, well, we're going to have to do a season 3 and probably a season 4.
I don't understand how you could pace the show well and not run out of source material by 4th season.
Yeah, I guess it sort of depends really on what they do in terms of like the side story things.
Right. They just like create new content there. I mean, they did it great with Bill and Frank.
They did,
Yeah.
and
So
there's like to a much lesser extent. There's no like dedicated episodes,
mhm.
but that stuff is still in season 2 as well. Like there's some interesting new characters or like implied characters from the game that have stuff to do here. But maybe, going into Abby's perspective, I mentioned, not to spoil anything for people who haven't played the game or whatever, but like Yara and Lev,
Yep.
do we get an episode or two fully dedicated to their backstory, their history, the stuff with their mum that we sort of hear about and only very briefly see in the game? Or do they just introduce new people? Or do we maybe get, this might be sacrilegious, and I'm not sure I'd be a fan of this, but do we get an epilogue of sorts post the end of part 2, where we see what happens with Abby and we see what happens with Ellie? I don't think I'd like that, but that could be a way of extending the runtime. It could also be the case, I could very much see it, that season 3 ends just as, without going into too much detail, the very end section of part 2 takes place in a different location, um, with both Abby and Ellie involved. Maybe that's the 4th season in that place, dealing with the threats that they find there and having the culmination of the story in season 4. That would be, I think, that would be egregious, in my opinion, same as you were saying, like, how do you pace that well? But I don't think, as much as all of the issues that I have with season 2, I don't think pacing is one of them. Like I have structural issues, but I think pacing is okay. So time will tell. Time will tell. Look at this to round us off, Taylor. Just a little bit of information, anecdotal at best, but worth pointing out, reassuring. Death Stranding 2 has reached approximately 1.4 million sales by the end of June, according to sources. So, as reported by Christopher Dring at the Game Business, quote, data firm Ampere estimates that Death Stranding 2 on the Beach sold 1.4 million copies by the end of June. The game has had a slower start than the original in terms of physical sales across Europe, but digital sales have been stronger, end quote.
That's 1.4 million in 5 days, Sam. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. I mean, you typically see like a big surge in sales around release.
I
And
mean, yeah.
that's also, I would assume, factoring in, I mean, of course it would be the like deluxe edition that had the early access as well. It'll be interesting to see what kind of tail this game has. Obviously, it's gotten very, very glowing reviews compared to the first game. So maybe that means that the tail for its sales potential can be extended a little bit. To be transparent, Ampere has been a little bit sketchy as of late, but in terms of like approximate sales numbers, they are arguably one of the more notable sources that you can look to that actually do try and infer things from different data sets. How reliable they are, that's up for debate. But if this is the approximation on where the sales are, then that's, like you say, probably a pretty good thing, I would say. Because that is already beaten out, as much as it breaks my heart to say it, that has already essentially fully caught up with Astrobot to date sales. So, because I think the most recent number we had for Astrobot was 1.5 million, which is a success for that game, to be clear, again, because it's a much smaller title. But yeah, great to see Death Stranding 2 is doing well. It deserves the success. I think word of mouth is going to do this game very good favors in the months and years to come. And you would assume because Kojima owned the IP that it's obviously going to come to PC, but I would assume it is also Xbox bound at some point. Whether that's after a year or whether it's longer, I don't know. I don't think it will take as long as it took Death Stranding 1 to come to Xbox, because that was 5 years. But yeah, everyone should just play it regardless of what platform it does or doesn't come out on. You owe it to yourself. So good news there to round off. You're playing Death Stranding 2 now, right?
I'm playing Death Stranding. I intend to play Death Stranding 2, and I intend to play Death Stranding.
You're gonna death my strand.
Okay. Okay, Sam. That is some exclusive content right there. All right.
If you say so.
All right. Yep. 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 Yep.
Yep.
I think that does it for episode 147. Yeah. Thank y'all so much for listening. You can find us on YouTube at Save the Game Media, Discord, Patreon, Extra Life. Links are all in the show notes. Where can people find you, Sam?
Anywhere and everywhere at Sam Heaney, Heaney.
Awesome. And you can find me at Mr. Carter9. That's Emmer, CARTERNINE, or TPR in the Discord, or TPR pound 6868 on Microsoft Flight Simulator. That's my Xbox account. Or if Killer Instinct gets a new game, maybe I'll play that on Xbox too.
Don't you hear Xbox only cancel games nowadays, Taylor?
Yeah. Remember when Perfect Dark was existing? Me too.
Yeah. That would have been cool.
Pepperidge Farms remembers. Yeah, it's a bad day to be Kevin this week, to be honest. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's we're sending out a little stimulus package with Helldivers just to raise some spirits over there. It's been a rough one.
Right.
PlayStation's canceled stuff and it was rough for us. So we know the feeling, people. Hopefully we're through the worst of it, but time will tell.
Yep. For sure. All right, well. Until next time, thank y'all so much for listening. Should be next week. Bree should be back next week, right? Yep.
Believe so.
See you guys later. Bye-bye.
Peace.